Welcome to a Legendarium special about the night attack of Vlad the Impaler. In this episode, we will learn about the events that transformed Dracula into a hero to his countrymen and a monster in the eyes of the rest of the world. Bram Stoker's version of Dracula is one of the timeless monsters of world literature, one of the first examples of a classic vampire. The elegant, brooding, and always bloodthirsty Count Dracula has appeared in dozens of adaptations. Yet despite all the innocent women Dracula drained over the years, he cannot hold the stub of a candle to his real-life namesake, Vlad III, or Vlad the Impaler of Wallachia. Vlad came of age in a rough-and-ready border kingdom between Christian Hungary and the Muslim Ottoman Empire. Princes in his time often switched loyalties between the two kingdoms, which made Wallachian politics complicated and often bloody. Vlad III himself seized power for 2 months in 1448, and then seized the throne again in 1456 and ruled for 6 bloody years. During his reign, Mehmed II demanded a jizya, or a tax on non-Muslims from the Christian border states near the Ottoman Empire. In 1460, the Hungarian regent Mikhail Szilágyi, Vlad's main ally against the Ottomans, fell into Turkish hands, and the Turks showed their respect for their fallen enemy by sawing him in half. This was not the only omen of war. The Turks kept Vlad's half-brother Radu at their court in case they needed a new prince of Wallachia. Anyone with eyes to see knew that the Ottoman Turks intended to conquer more of southern Europe. So in 1461, Vlad III ended all payments to the Sultan. If Mehmed II failed to take the point, Vlad III invaded Ottoman territory, killing tens of thousands of Turks and Bulgarians in a brutal campaign. That year, Vlad Dracula wrote a letter to King Matthias Corvinus of Hungary describing how he killed precisely 23,884 Turks and Bulgarians, not including those who burned in their houses and whose heads were not presented to our officials. Following reports of Vlad III seeking an alliance with King Matthias Corvinus of Hungary, Mehmed II raised a great army of 70,000 men with 120 cannons. He intended to conquer Wallachia, and when Mehmed II crossed the Danube River into Wallachia, Vlad could only gather 10,000 men from his small kingdom. After a brief exchange of cannon fire, Vlad withdrew. After receiving no support from his so-called ally Corvinus, Vlad called for a mobilization that included gypsy slave contingents. He adopted guerrilla tactics, making hit-and-run attacks against the Ottoman Turks from the mountains. Vlad even hired men dying of the plague to slip into the Ottoman camps and cough blood into their wells. Vlad burned fields, took livestock, and destroyed villages in his own kingdom, which caused terrible suffering to his subjects. Yet he also kept the enemy from feeding themselves. One Turkish chronicler wrote, "There was not a drop of water to quench their thirst. All the carts and animals came to a halt. The heat of the sun was so great that you could cook kebabs on the mail shirts of the Ghazis." On the night of June 17, 1462, the Turks camped outside Vlad's capital of Târgoviște. The camp made for a splendid sight, huge and colorful, rows of white tents stretching into the distance, banners flying proudly. One could hear music, smell roasting meat, and see a haze of smoke from countless little charcoal braziers. At the heart of it lay Mehmed's great tent and pavilion, intricately woven with decorations of crimson and gold. Weary Turks failed to notice that Wallachian spies slipped into their camp. Legend has it that Vlad himself slipped into the Turkish camp, for he spoke Turkish well enough to pass himself off as a soldier. These spies provided a rough layout of the Ottoman camp, including the stabling for the horses and camels, the supply wagons, and the Janissary tents. Most importantly, they noted where to find the tent of Mehmed II. Just before midnight, Vlad himself rode up to the gate of the Ottoman camp. In perfect Turkish, he ordered the guard to open the gate. The guard obeyed, and in the dark, he and a picked body of 7,000 horsemen flowed into the camp, which held 70,000 Turks. They are secretly held for long enough that most of Vlad's soldiers entered before the Turks raised an alarm. Vlad's soldiers flung burning torches into the Ottoman tents, sending them up in gouts of flame while sleeping Turks tried to rouse themselves. Whenever they could, Wallachian troops slaughtered horses and camels. Vlad led a special hit squad which chopped and hacked their way to the tent of Mehmed II, only to find that the Sultan had left his tent. Upon realizing that the bold and bloody night attack failed, Vlad ordered his troops to withdraw. The next day, Mehmed II and his troops continued their march towards Turgoviste before seeing what appeared to be a stand of trees. Instead, they stumbled upon a forest of wooden stakes piled high with 20,000 skewered Ottoman and Bulgarian corpses. They had found the now infamous Forest of the Dead, a number mentioned by Vlad himself in a letter to Matthias Corvinus. Birds nested in the corpses of thousands of impaled dead. Upon seeing this horrifying scene, the Sultan retreated to the town of Brela and burned it to the ground. Mehmed II then returned home with many captured slaves, horses, and cattle. Ironically, Vlad's infamous night attack did not bring him victory, for the Turks continued their march, intent on making his half-brother Radu a Turkish puppet. Once it became clear that he simply could not defeat the overwhelming Turkish numbers, Vlad's army began to desert. Matthias Corvinus, to show his anti-Turkish bona fides to the Pope, falsely accused Vlad of being a Turkish ally and put him in prison. Dracula died on the battlefield 14 years later, fighting against another Turkish invasion. Once more, the Turks badly outnumbered him, so to save themselves, Vlad's Hungarian troops murdered him, chopped off his head, and sent it to the Sultan, who fittingly impaled it on a spear and placed it outside his palace. Wallachian survivors buried what remained of Dracula's body at a cemetery outside Snagov Monastery. When people tried to move the remains generations later, they found nothing but animal bones. Most likely, robbers stole Vlad's corpse to abscond with the treasure the Wallachians were said to have buried with him. Though the night attack failed to preserve Vlad's throne, it ensured him a place in the world's memory for both heroic and horrifying reasons. That wraps things up for this episode of The Legendarium. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe, and if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.